moments in human history that force us to look directly at ourselves. Not because what happened long ago is distant, but because what unfolded in the past continues to repeat itself in subtler and more dangerous forms. This is not the story of an ancient king who died thousands of years ago. This is the story of the moment when a human being stood up and said, "I am God." And what is even more terrifying is that millions of people believed him. Imagine a world where power does not only rule land but invades faith. A world where human lives rest in the hands of someone who believes he has the authority to decide who lives and who dies. A world where bowing is no longer reserved for the Creator but for a flesh and blood man wrapped in divine imagery. In that world, silence means survival and questioning is considered betrayal. And the man at the center of that world has a name: Nimrod. Nimrod did not begin as a monster. He was not born with blood on his hands, nor did he immediately declare himself a god. At first, he was a strong and intelligent king, someone who knew how to impose order among chaotic tribes. He expanded territory, centralized power, and convinced people that only he could bring security and prosperity. But it was right there, at the moment when people began to confuse power with truth, that an invisible line was crossed. When power is no longer restrained by humility, it begins to demand worship. Nimrod slowly stopped seeing himself as someone entrusted with authority and started seeing himself as the source of authority itself. He built statues of himself not merely to be remembered, but to be worshipped. He demanded that people bow not only before the throne, but before him. In Nimrod's mind, if he could grant life and death, then there was no need for any god above him. Society under Nimrod's rule gradually became distorted. Temples were no longer places to seek truth, but tools to maintain fear. Idols were no longer just stone and wood, but symbols of power made sacred. Those who refused to bow were labeled threats. Those who did not believe were seen as enemies of order. Faith was reshaped to serve the throne, and people were taught that obeying Nimrod was the same as obeying the universe itself. But there is one thing every arrogant empire forgets. The greater the power, the deeper the fear of losing it. Nimrod did not only want worship, he wanted to eliminate all challenge. When rumors spread that a child would be born who would shake the foundation of this false belief, Nimrod did not hesitate. The order was given. Innocent lives had to be taken, all to protect a throne dressed in divinity. At that moment, Nimrod believed he controlled destiny. He believed that through power, violence, and fear, he could lock history into his own design. What he did not realize was that the moment a human declares himself God is the moment he enters direct confrontation with the one who created him. And in that confrontation, it would not be fire, tall towers, or mighty armies that would decide the outcome, but a simple truth. Power never turns a human into a god, but arrogance always turns a human into someone lost. Welcome to Prophetic History Explained, where we do not simply retell history, but uncover the truths buried beneath power, faith, and human arrogance. If you believe the story of Nimrod is nothing more than an ancient legend, keep listening, because what is about to be revealed may force you to reconsider the world we are living in today. And before we go further, subscribe to support Prophetic History Explained. Your support is what allows us to continue bringing stories that are deep, honest, and awakening. Stories that do not end in the past, but speak directly to our present and future. Some forms of faith are not born under temple lights, shaped by rituals, or protected by power. They are formed in silence, in solitude, in questions people are afraid to ask in public. The faith of Ibrahim began this way, not with a dramatic revelation, but with a quiet separation from what society accepted as obvious. Ibrahim's childhood was not surrounded by bustling cities or grand religious festivals. He grew up on the margins of the world humans had built, where there were no idols to bow to and no power to rely on. That separation created a necessary space, a space where reflection could exist. When people are not surrounded by the voices of the crowd, they are forced to listen to themselves. During long nights, Ibrahim looked at the sky, not with fear and not with blind worship, but with the eyes of someone searching for answers. He watched stars appear and fade, the moon become full and then diminish, the sun blaze and then sink below the horizon. The very things his society worshipped were things that changed, disappeared, and could not protect themselves. From those observations, a conclusion formed, not in a single moment, but through many nights of thought. Anything that disappears, is replaced, or fades away cannot be God. A true God does not depend on position in the sky, does not require borrowed light to exist, and does not retreat when darkness comes. Ibrahim did not deny the beauty or greatness of the universe, but he refused to turn that beauty into an object of worship. What made Ibrahim's faith different was not only the conclusion he reached, but the path he took to reach it. He did not borrow belief from his ancestors. He did not accept ideas simply because they were ancient. In a society where tradition was treated as truth, Ibrahim dared to question tradition. In a world where the majority decided right and wrong, he dared to stand alone. That solitude was not despair. It was freedom. Freedom to question. Freedom to say something was not enough. Freedom to admit that if there truly was a creator, then that creator had to exist beyond all forms, objects, and limitations humans could imagine. Ibrahim's faith was not an escape from reason, but complete loyalty to reason guided by humility. When Ibrahim looked at his society, he did not see evil people at first. He saw fearful people clinging to what was familiar, worshiping what they could see so they would not have to face the unseen. But he also understood that fear, when combined with power, becomes chains. Idols do not only bind the mind, they prevent the search for truth. At this stage, Ibrahim did not confront, destroy, or argue. He reflected. He observed. He reached a deeply personal conviction that there was only one worthy of worship, one who was not born and could not be destroyed. That quiet conviction became the foundation for everything that would follow. Because when faith is built on force, it requires violence to survive. But when faith is born from reflection and truth, it can stand even if only one person carries it in their heart. Ibrahim did not yet know that the road ahead would be filled with trials, that the truth he embraced would isolate him among his own people. But he had already chosen. He chose not to bow to what he knew was unworthy. Faith born in solitude does not remain hidden forever. When it finally steps into the light and confronts self-declared divine power, the world witnesses an inevitable collision between reason and tyranny, humility and arrogance. But before any of that happens, something essential has already taken shape. A human being has learned to stand upright, even when only the sky bears witness. Truth, when it stands alone, always unsettles power. Ibrahim did not appear as an armed rebel or as someone seeking to replace one ruler with another. He appeared with something far more dangerous: questions. Those questions began to crack the foundation Nimrod and the ruling elite believed was unbreakable. Ibrahim did not attack people first. He challenged what they believed was sacred. He asked why they placed hope, fear, and destiny in objects that could not hear, see, or protect themselves. He spoke calmly, without insult, but without compromise. That calmness made his words more unsettling than aggression. When a person is not afraid, power loses its strongest weapon. Ibrahim's act of destroying the idols was not impulsive or meaningless. It was an experiment, a mirror placed before society. By leaving the largest idol intact with an axe on its shoulder, he forced idol worshippers to confront the contradiction in their own belief. If the idols truly had power, they would have defended themselves. If they could not, then what was the entire system of worship built upon? That question spread faster than any speech. It made people who had never doubted before feel uneasy. That unease alerted those in power that Ibrahim was not just different, but dangerous. Not because he had followers, but because he made people think. When Ibrahim was brought before the crowd, society revealed the nature of a faith built on fear. Instead of answering his questions, they demanded he answer for his actions. Instead of dialogue, they sought punishment. When arguments failed, power spoke through violence. The exchange between Ibrahim and Nimrod was not a debate between equals, but a collision between two views of reality. Nimrod spoke with authority built over years, with throne, army, and fear. Ibrahim spoke with a simple truth that required no violence to defend. Life and death do not belong to humans. When Nimrod claimed he could give life and cause death, Ibrahim did not mock him. He asked one more question. If Nimrod's power was absolute, then change the order of the universe. Make the sun rise from a different direction. Silence followed. Some questions do not need answers to prove there are none. Defeat in argument was something Nimrod could not accept, not because he lost logic, but because his power was exposed as limited in front of everyone. For those who rule through fear, exposure is more terrifying than overthrow. Nimrod could not allow that. Ibrahim's sentence was not delivered through justice, but through panic. The crowd that once bowed respectfully to idols now demanded punishment for the man who made them doubt themselves. They did not only want Ibrahim gone, they wanted the discomfort he created to disappear. Here lies a bitter paradox. Those who worshipped idols in the name of order and peace were ready to commit extreme violence to protect their belief. This revealed that they did not truly believe. They were afraid. And fear always demands a sacrifice. At that moment, Ibrahim ceased to be just a man. He became a symbol of truth that refused to bow. That truth did not shout or seek rebellion. It simply stood, forcing power to reveal its true face. And when power chose fire over reason, history reached a decisive moment. This confrontation was not only between a prophet and a king. It was the eternal clash between truth and tyranny, questions and commands, a man who stood upright and a system that could not tolerate truth. The fire was not lit merely to burn a man, but to test whether truth itself could be destroyed. The fire was built not only to punish, but to silence a question. It was fueled by fear, rage, and the belief that violence could replace truth. Nimrod believed that if the fire was large enough, all voices would fall silent. He believed that when the body turned to ash, truth would vanish with it. For days, wood was brought from everywhere. Each piece was not only fuel, but a symbol of collective complicity. People participated not out of hatred alone, but out of fear of standing apart. When violence becomes ritual, silence is treated as betrayal. The higher the flames rose, the more the crowd convinced itself it was defending order, while in reality defending its own fear. Ibrahim was bound not only with ropes, but with society's judgment. In front of him was fire. Behind him were people who had once listened, once hesitated, but ultimately chose power. There were no arguments left, no resistance, only a silence so deep that all other sounds became meaningless. At this final point, Ibrahim's faith revealed its true nature. He did not seek a miracle as escape. He did not call for angels to intervene to prove him right. He did not bargain with God. His surrender was not hope for rescue, but total acceptance. If he was saved, it was mercy. If he entered the fire, it was a will he accepted fully. What makes this moment great is not the outcome, but the inner state before it. A human facing death without fear, not because he expected survival, but because he trusted that Allah's will is always right, whether it leads to life or death. This was not recklessness or despair. It was the peak of surrender, where the ego disappears and only trust remains. When Ibrahim was launched toward the fire, Nimrod believed his power had reached its peak. He watched, convinced that the flames would confirm his self-proclaimed divinity. But Nimrod misunderstood one thing. Fire is not its own master. Fire only does what it is permitted to do. The divine command did not arrive with thunder or lightning. It came in absolute stillness. The fire burned, but it no longer destroyed. It became a witness to a truth earthly power could not touch. The ropes burned away, but Ibrahim's body remained unharmed. The collapse everyone expected never happened. If the story ended at the miracle, it would be misunderstood. The miracle was not to elevate Ibrahim above others, nor a reward for courage, nor a display meant to impress. It marked a boundary. Human power only functions within what is allowed. When Allah wills, even the most fixed laws must step aside. Some in the crowd were amazed, some terrified, and others enraged. The miracle shattered the final illusion they clung to, that violence could destroy truth. When fire failed, it exposed the weakness of an entire system built on fear. Ibrahim walked out of the fire not as a triumphant conqueror. He did not boast or demand recognition. He emerged as someone who placed full trust in Allah and was preserved by His will. That calmness terrified power more than anything else. A person who does not fear death cannot be controlled by violence. The fire did not destroy faith. It revealed that some things cannot be burned. From that moment, power began its decline, even if the throne and armies remained. History recorded that complete surrender carries more power than any violence humans can create. After the fire failed, Nimrod's authority still stood outwardly intact, but internally it began to rot. Arrogance does not collapse immediately. It survives on illusion. Nimrod did not see the miracle as a warning, but as humiliation. For someone who claimed divinity, being challenged was unbearable, but being challenged without response was obsession. That obsession drove Nimrod to his final delusion. He ordered the construction of a massive tower, not to seek knowledge or connection, but to glorify himself. It was the final declaration of lost power. If there was a god above, Nimrod would reach him and defeat him. From the tower, Nimrod shot arrows into the sky and celebrated when they fell, stained red. In his madness, he believed he had wounded the unseen. This was not victory, but proof of how deeply arrogance can deceive. When humans are intoxicated by power, they mistake illusion for triumph and confuse Allah's silence with weakness. The response did not come immediately. No lightning tore the sky, no meteor struck the palace. What followed came in a way Nimrod never imagined. Not through greater power, but through something so small it had never mattered to him. Tiny creatures appeared, overwhelming his army. Warriors who once terrified entire regions became helpless against what could not be commanded, threatened, or bribed. Nimrod fled, carrying the fear he once inflicted on others. He sealed himself inside his palace, trusting walls and guards. But power cannot stop what has been decreed. A tiny creature entered the place Nimrod believed safest. From there, collapse followed, not as a king's downfall, but as the disintegration of an ego crushed by its own helplessness. Nimrod's death was slow, painful, and humiliating. The man who commanded millions to bow could not command his own body. The one who claimed mastery over life and death could not control a single moment of pain. This was not revenge, as humans imagine it, but exposure. Exposure of power, stripped of humility, revealed as empty. If the story ended with Nimrod's death, it would be only a tragedy. Its true value lies beyond that era. Nimrod is not only an ancient king, Nimrod reappears whenever individuals, systems, or societies believe their power is immune to truth. His death reminds us that Allah does not need overwhelming force to humble the arrogant. He only needs to reveal how small they truly are. What humans consider great can fall through the smallest means when it is not grounded in truth. And what appears weak, like Ibrahim's quiet faith, can withstand every storm. This story does not call us to fear, but to awaken, to examine the power we hold, the ego we nurture, and the invisible idols we may bow to. History shows that collapse does not begin when thrones shake, but when humility disappears. Nimrod faded in pain and silence, but the lesson remains. No power survives when it stands against truth, and no ego is too great to be crushed once it forgets its source. Applied to our lives today, we are invited to live with greater awareness of our ego. When we hold power in family, work, or society, we must ask whether we use it to serve or to be worshipped. In crisis, instead of clinging to control, we are called to do our best and entrust the rest. And when faced with uncomfortable truth, we must choose reflection and dialogue instead of force. If these reflections resonate with you, join the Prophetic History Explained community to explore more stories, lessons, and depth from prophetic history. Knowledge meant not only to inform, but to transform how we live. And do not forget to subscribe to support Prophetic History Explained as we continue bringing meaningful, truthful, and awakening content in future videos.